All right, so we've had 2 games of Jimmy Butler with the Golden State Warriors. I'm kind of going to be doing some of these where I'm going to, talk about the new acquisitions on certain teams, but I wanted to talk about the team out in the Bay. The Warriors beat the Chicago Bulls over the weekend, and they beat the Milwaukee Bucks on Monday, and Jimmy Butler was spectacular in both of those games. I think the first thing, I guess, if we are just going to dive into it with the Jimmy Butler experience so far, one thing that's interesting so far is that the Warriors are constantly using Jimmy Butler as a screener, and I mentioned this when the Warriors traded for him that night. I just think that's going to do so much for Steph Curry. I think with Steph Curry, there's this perception that he's kind of washed now. I think he's just 36 and had some typical 36-year-old injuries. I still think he's really fucking good and just one of the best offensive players in the NBA. And now that he has another shot creator like a Jimmy Butler on his team, you could just see stuff is so much easier for Steph. And then when you want him to create on his own, he can do that in pockets when Jimmy Butler is out of the game. But using Jimmy Butler as a screener or using Steph to screen for Jimmy Butler and Steph screening for anybody is just lethal, because the guy is not going to leave Steph. And the guy that's getting screened, he really can't leave Steph either, because he could just slip and pop out. That's happened a few times. There was one particular play yesterday, and it happened a little bit in the Bulls game too, but Jimmy Butler caught the ball by the free throw line on the short roll and then hit Draymond in the dunker spot. And defensively, I just can't wait to see the defensive chemistry between Draymond and Jimmy Butler grow. But the Warriors are using him everywhere on offense, and it's funny to see a fan base that has been really since Kevin Durant, but they haven't really had a guy that could draw fouls. And now they have one of the best free throw merchants in the NBA in Jimmy Butler. And I say that respectfully because Jimmy Butler is good at drawing fouls. And when a team starts to get some momentum, Jimmy Butler will draw a foul and slow the game down and get 2 points. And Jimmy Butler is just so physical that I think with the way Steph opens up everything, Jimmy Butler just has more space. He can draw more contact. You'll see a few times Draymond Green is just lobbing passes up to Jimmy, who we all know he likes to fancy himself as a wide receiver. He jumps up and he gets it, finishes it. It's been interesting and very fun so far because it's clear Steph is rejuvenated, much in the way LeBron has been rejuvenated since the Luka news. He finally has somebody else that could create their own offense. And as much as the Warriors can get by with the Draymond Steph two-man game, the guys as the tent poles at this stage in their career, the Warriors just needed a little bit extra oomph, and I think Jimmy Butler provided that. I have a really funny stat that I, came across perusing Cleaning the Glass, which is a really good website. The Warriors' free throw rate as a team is like in the 10th percentile. It's 16.2. It's basically how many free throw makes you have per 100 possessions, and that is one of the worst in the NBA. And the Warriors are notoriously known for not getting calls or getting to the free throw line. Now, in these 2 games with Jimmy Butler on the court, as I readjust the lineup data, with Jimmy Butler on the court for the Warriors in 125 possessions, the Warriors have a 39.3 free throw rate, which is in the 100th percentile. So there is a new dynamic for the Warriors offense. You could use Jimmy Butler like a queen on the chessboard. You can move him anywhere. And the Warriors could get away with playing small a little bit more now because Jimmy Butler can play power forward. He can rebound. He's very helpful defensively still. But just offensively, when Steph goes to the bench, the Warriors' non-Steph lineups are a little bit more palatable, a little bit more watchable because Jimmy Butler can create a lot of things. And also, with all the Warriors role players, because a lot of the start to the season was how good they were defensively, how they can platoon different lineups because they had a lot of role players. Now that there are 2 established elite offensive engines on this team, all those role players kind of just fall into place now. And you could just see that this could be a really good team. Like I said, I don't think I'm picking them to win the championship, but I think the Warriors getting Jimmy Butler has given them some extra juice, and it has also allowed the roster to fall into place. Like, Buddy Hield's role makes more sense now. Moses Moody, the Warriors should pay the man. His role made sense. And just the role players don't have to be relied on as much to continue to keep the machine moving on offense, because eventually, you know, once you cut the head of the snake off in Steph, you could have the other role players just try to beat you. The defense will take that any day of the week. But now they have two legit offensive creators, and all the other role players are falling into place. By the way, let me just say this also. As a Sixer fan that has been wanting a backup center that could also stretch the floor for the entirety of the Joel Embiid era, I always have to tie it back to my Sixers. I am just so jealous of the Grizzlies and the Warriors for finding stretch fives on the margins with Jay Huff and drafting Quentin Post in the second round. This motherfucker's shooting 41% from three on nearly 4 attempts per game, and is just a 7-footer and a big body and gives the Warriors some credible size. And he has a role on this team. It's just... Anyway, the Warriors are now an interesting team officially with the addition of Jimmy Butler. And Steph, I think, is rejuvenated, and he clearly looks like he is ready to make another run. And when it comes to the Warriors' playoff prospects, I don't want to go too far, but I will say this. We have seen Jimmy Butler turn into Michael Jordan in the playoffs, basically. He kind of fizzled out a little bit at the end of that 23, playoff run where the Heat made it to the finals. He wasn't as effective as he was early in the playoffs and in that Celtics series. But for the most part, every postseason, Jimmy Butler just triples his production from the regular season. He's one of the very few players that could do that. And when you have that on your team with one of the 10 best players of all time, still really good, and has experience as a 4-time champion, and you still have one of the great defenders in the NBA and one of the greatest defenders of all time, still effective at his age, now working off Jimmy Butler, the Warriors are an interesting team. I'll just say that. As it stands right now, obviously, the Oklahoma City Thunder, they are miles above everybody else right now in the Western Conference. But you never, ever want to count out star players, all-time great players, aging stars, etc. But yeah, very encouraging first 2 games in the Jimmy Butler era for the Warriors. Kind of about everything Warriors fans would hope for, getting another creator next to Steph and all that stuff, and he's locked up for the next few years, so you're not going to get any of the Jimmy Butler episodes now that he got his money. So it's going to be fun to watch.